Samuel Shenton founded the International Flat Earth Research Society in 1956. Please don't confuse that with the Flat Earth Society that's about today. And despite scientific opposition, he promoted the idea of a flat Earth with a central North Pole and there being no South Pole, but rather the South Pole was an ice wall that surrounded where we live. Shenton continued his advocacy through lectures and media appearances until his death in 1971. So we're going to watch a short interview with him, and then I'll have his Wikipedia page read where he talks about the distance of the sun and the moon and gives measurements.
The commander, Colonel Borman, mentioned the views of Mr. Samuel Shenton, president of the International Flat Earth Society, who lives in Dover and who believes the Earth is shaped like a gramophone record.
Links very much with the statement which was given out by General Boardman, the astronaut. The Earth in its early stages was revealed from the waters, and it was revealed as a four-square fabric.
Like this, in fact.
The astronauts fired off from Cape Canaveral. They went on an egg-shaped orbit over this like that.
Keeping the same height all the time?
Absolutely so.
In fact, there isn't any South Pole.
No. The 60,000 miles was round the ice barrier, and so far man has not gone across the ice barrier to investigate it.
Samuel Shenton was an English conspiracy theorist and lecturer. In 1956, he founded the International Flat Earth Research Society, based in Dover. He lectured tirelessly on this to youth clubs, political and student groups, and during the space race in the 1960s he was frequently seen on television and in newspapers promoting his views. Life. Samuel Shenton was a sign writer who lived with his wife Lillian in a ginger brick terrace in suburban Dover. He was the son of an Army Sergeant Major, born in Great Yarmouth, and by the 1920s claimed to have invented an airship that would rise into the atmosphere and remain stationary until the Earth spun westwards at 1,000 km to the desired destination at the same latitude. Shenton could not understand why someone had not previously thought of this idea until he discovered, in the reading room of the British Museum at Bloomsbury, that Archbishop Stevens, a friend of Lady Blunt, the founder of the Universal Zetetic Society, had suggested an aircraft design similar to his own. When he discovered Parallax's zetetic astronomy, he was an instant convert. What the authorities were concealing was the fact that the Earth was flat. Shenton soon constructed a cosmology, based partly on his interpretation of Genesis. That Earth was a flat disk centered on the North Pole, with the zetetic notion of the South Pole being an impenetrable wall of ice. That marked the edge of the pit that is the Earth and the endless flat plane forming the universe. The sun cast a narrow beam like a flashlight moving over a table as it traced flat circles that varied over the 365-day cycles. The sun was 32 miles in diameter, 3,000 miles above the Earth, and the moon also 32 miles in diameter, but only 2,550 miles above the Earth. In 1956, he founded the Flat Earth Society as a direct descendant of the Universal Zetetic Society, but with a less religious emphasis, found a president in William Mills, a relative of one of Lady Blunt's followers, and held its inaugural meeting in November at Mills' home in London, with Shenton as secretary. One of the attendees, attending out of curiosity, was the sky at night astronomer Patrick Moore, who recounted his experience in his book, Can You Speak Venusian? Shenton claimed that George Bernard Shaw attended one meeting, declaring the presentation was very persuasive. Despite his contrary ideas, Shenton was elected a fellow of both the Royal Astronomical and Royal Geographical Societies. Despite the launch in October 1957 of Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite, Shenton proved a popular speaker to small groups, enjoying particularly talking to children, never declining an invitation. He claimed that satellites simply circled over a flat disk world, would sailing round the Isle of Wight prove that it were spherical, he demanded. As crewed spaceflight started in 1961, Shenton began to attract international media attention with his denials, telling the Coshocton Tribune on May 10th that the astronauts could never travel into orbit.
The world. He was sent for his membership with the message "Okay, wise guy" added to it. Shenton continued to lecture largely at his own expense, but he suffered 2 strokes in 1963. In January 1964, the New York Times carried a piece about the Ivers during a parliamentary debate. Enoch Powell likened his opponents to flat earthers, and Harold Wilson reportedly slung back the insult in turn. Shenton was outraged and wrote letters of complaint. The Gemini 4 mission marked a change of pace for his campaign, and he was to receive letters from across the world for the next few years. In 1966, he produced a pamphlet, The Plain Truth, which included a circular informing members that modern astronomy and space flight were insults to God, and divine punishment for humankind's arrogance was a mere matter of time. But the lunar orbiter program led to a sharp decline in membership. Visual images, whether they were globes, photographs, or television pictures, were clearly critical to how people perceived the Earth's shape, and preschool children could know that it was round even if they had no grasp of the words mathematics, geography, astronomy, and science. In December 1968, during the Apollo 8 mission, Shenton admitted, "If they show us a very clear picture of the Earth from space and the picture does not show all the continents, and the edge of the picture is out of perspective, then that would prove that the Earth is round. Until then, we shall continue fighting to prove the Earth is flat." A month later, Shenton asserted deception and conspiracy. Asked about Apollo 8 sending images of a round Earth, he said, "That's where those Americans and Russians are so damn cunning. For some reason or other, they obviously want us to think the world is round. Some of the pictures have been blatantly doctored. Studio shots, probably." Following Apollo 11, he added, "The astronauts are hypnotized into believing they go into space. Even with their training, those chaps wouldn't have the nerve to be fired off on top of an explosive, a rocket, and the lack of observations they bring back is negligible." By 1968, his health had deteriorated further and his songwriting business had collapsed, although the media attention continued. But he stuck to his principles of zetetic inquiry, in which only personally acquired facts were permissible. In January 1969, IFERS had dropped to 100 members worldwide. But as his organization was dying, he found the successor he had been looking for. Ellis Hillman, a lecturer and member of the Greater London Council, agreed to be president of the IFERS, with the encouragement of Patrick Moore. Lillian Shenton was suspicious of his motives, and in the event he did little for the society. 18 months later, Shenton had died.